Morning world, it's about 10:30 in the morning on Thursday the 16th of April 2020. Due to public demand and public pressure, I've put the mask over his nose. He's not going to be there that much longer though. Right, at the end of this there will be a couple of announcements about today's broadcast and I'm back to a couple of really good jokes, but let's get today's video done. Post-COVID. The world's still in lockdown. It's just beginning to ease up in one or two countries in Europe. So there's the very first signs of a turnaround. I still think that most of the world, most of Europe anyway, is going to be in lockdown until early mid-May. Most of the clients' charts I'm seeing suggest to me that people aren't going to be going back to conventional work until mid-May, and in some places like the US of A, it's probably going to be a little bit later than that. But basically it seems to be gradually, slowly turning a corner. Now, the virus is here to stay. I know that humanity has defeated some viruses. For example, smallpox. But there's still other viruses that we've had since forever that we've never beaten. Herpes, measles, whooping cough, polio and smallpox we've kind of eradicated. But some viruses you just can't get rid of, and this is one of them. COVID in various shapes and form, whether it's COVID-19, 20, 21, 22, whether it's disguised as MERS or SARS or Spanish flu, it's going to be around forever. And long term, you can vaccinate against one and something else will spring up to take its place. Long term, the only way to defeat a virus is through having a good immune system. Now, looking post-COVID at the world and the way it's going to be, I thought a lot about how I'm going to do this video, and the only way I can do this is by going through all the 12 different houses of the zodiac and looking at the affairs of each house and then projecting this into and onto the world. So let's go backwards. Let's start with the 12th house. Let's start with the house that's most commonly associated with Pisces. It's the area of solitude. Now, one of the things that's going to come out of this after COVID is a new approach to mental health. So many people have been in isolation, and we're going to see the results of this in a few months' time, where a lot of people are going to find that all of a sudden the relationship they have with themselves, their own psychological states, their own sense of self-belief and self-confidence is really going to thrive and prosper because of the time they've spent on their own with themselves. Of course, the other side of the same coin is that there will be a minority of people who just don't like themselves and who can't be in their own company for too long without interacting with others for whatever reason. And there we're going to have a few issues because in various levels, social distancing, quarantining, isolation is going to remain a theme for years to come at various different levels. So I do anticipate various levels of mental health becoming more obvious, and also the way we deal with it is going to have to change. However, there is a positive side to this. With a lot of people being cooped up on their own, there's a lot of new imagination going to be coming out. There'll be a lot of books written, a lot of YouTubers doing stuff, a lot of videos, a lot of music, a lot of creative output from the imagination through because of this enforced aloneness. So if we look at the 11th house of community that relates to Aquarius, various communities have done different things. I mean, in the UK now, every Thursday night, 3 weeks ago, there was about 6 people on my street. 2 weeks ago, there's about 20 people on my street. Last week, there was about 40. God knows what it's going to be like tonight. Everyone's out there banging saucepans. I'll have my drum out there tonight. The sense of community in the cities and the towns anyway is actually really good. There's one crazy town up in the north of England, a town called Belper, where every day everyone is just going out the door at the same time and mooing, the noise that cows make. I mean, why, I don't know, but it's that element of humorous insanity that keeps community together. Obviously, the 2 meters rule is ongoing and will probably stay ongoing in various ways for the long-term future. And it does make me question in the future how we're going to manage community events such as concerts, festivals, and particularly sports stadium. Will we ever go back to having 100,000 people in a football stadium or 150,000 at Glastonbury Pop Festival? That's going to be a really interesting way to see how we do this. Again, it speaks of the only way we'll be able to do this is with herd immunity, accepting the fact that some people will get ill and die, and the vast majority will become immune. And we'll talk about that in other ways. But the nature of community is going to be changing in the world, and I suspect that the days of large-scale attendance at events is still quite a way off. 10th house, career, job, work, public image, relating to Capricorn, the 10th sign. One of the things that's going to be happening is that employers are now going to be looking at what's happened in the last 4 weeks, and they're going to be going, you know what, we don't need people to come into work. They can work from home. So there's going to be a lot more homework over the coming year or years. As a result, prices of office space is going to plummet. Offices are going to remain unused. No one's going to be building new offices or selling new offices, not long term anyway, because there simply won't be the market. There won't be the people going into offices and working right next to each other for a long period of time because of the health risks. So they'll be working at home instead. And still some will come into the office, but office space is going to decrease. Also, the nature of the way we shop. Just today in Britain, the very first fast food shops are reopening for delivery. That's not going to last. So many people are learning the joys of cooking, and so many people are waking up to the idea that if you want to live, you've got to have a good immune system. And a good immune system does not mean eating burgers and genetically modified foods from a fast food bar, deep fried in all types of horrible fats. That's not food. That's just artificial. There will always be people who go, oh, but I want my burger, I want my hamburger, and I want my French fries, and I want my pizza with all the sort of GMO foods on. Fine, okay, but this is the difference between human beings and humans being. And humans being will live a long time, and human beings will get obese and get diabetes and then be much more receptive to viruses. There's the manual work that goes on, all the frontline stuff like the postman, the dustman, the shop assistants, the street cleaners, the wonderful people in the healthcare, the manual work. That will still have to go on, at least in the medium term, but slowly over a period of years, this is going to be replaced by robots. And eventually, more and more manual work will be done by machines or by artificial intelligence, which then is going to create a sort of superficial workforce. So what will happen then to that workforce? That's a good question. So what will happen with the people in the workplace? Will they go on to education and become, will society as a whole become much more educated and literate and intelligent? Or won't it? And the alternative is that there will be a lot of spare people around who don't have any function, and that's a bit of a nightmare scenario. The 9th house, relating to Sagittarius, travel and higher education. Travel, anyone who's investing in the boat market, in the liners at the moment, it's not going to work. The idea, any sensible person is not going to be wanting to go on a cruise at any time in the next 2 or 3 years, at least, because cruise ships have the potential to be floating morgues. Maybe I'm a bit sort of over the top with that one, but I wouldn't recommend anyone to be going on a cruise at the moment. Some people will, and fine, it's up to them, your life. Similarly, when the planes come back, they're not going to come back in so many big numbers because people won't be flying so much. Employers will be saying to their people, why do you need to fly to Singapore? Why can't you do it by Zoom or Skype? I'm going to be looking at my flying, and everyone else will be as well. especially as when the planes come back, the airlines are going to be ramping up the prices because they're all taking a financial hit. So plane travel is going to decrease. Boat travel, at least in terms of cruises, will also decrease. Education, higher education, is going to become much more of a sought after commodity. A lot of people are going to change their lifestyles and become more literate and more educated. Excuse me. Right. The eighth house, other people's money, relating to Scorpio. Well, the global financial markets, they're going to lag behind the social changes. And as a result, they're going to try and go back to the way we were. And they will succeed for the first few months. But gradually, as the changes that I'm proposing come in, so the markets will have to fall in line. So the ideas of the insane profits and stock market shares of this last few years cannot continue. It just cannot. So there will be a balance. There will be the correction, as we used to call it. The seventh house of relationships, relating to Libra. Well, relationships are going to grow or not. I've been doing readings now for about 5 or 6 days, since this time last week. And already I'm seeing a lot of relationships buckling under the strain. A lot of aggression, whether physical, verbal, mental, emotional. But also, I have to balance this, certain individuals are doing really, really well. The relationships are growing stronger and stronger. People are becoming more of a team. And relationships is one of the few areas that I don't see as being changing big time over the coming years. Sixth house, lifestyle management, relating to Virgo. Health, hygiene, diet, nutrition, exercise. We've all got really red and sore hands now because we've been washing our hands so much. We're all looking at our health, and some people are buying into the hype and spin and already placing orders and queuing up for the vaccines. Others are just sort of eating a lot more fruit, salad, vegetables, healthy oily foods, and lots of ginger and turmeric and all the good antivirals, not the antibacterials but the antivirals. Health, hygiene, diet, nutrition, exercise. Because of the lockdown, I'm seeing so many people out there doing exercising, and yeah, the world could do with being a bit fitter. There is going to be a new individual way of looking at lifestyle management emerging over the coming year, and people are going to be more focused on their fitness and their health. And if that means at the expense of working so hard, so be it. People aren't going to be going back to the same manic rush. It may seem like that for the first few months, but by the time we're into September, October, the grim reality will be biting and we will not be going back to the same manic lifestyle. The fifth house, relating to children, creativity, to a lesser extent gambling and the way we have fun in our lives, relating to Leo. We're going to see changes in attitudes towards contraception, conception, and the way we bring children into the world or not. Most contraception and abortion practices are condoned by elitist religious cults, normally powered by old men in skirts who just want power over women. It's a woman's right to choose in every way as to whether she has a baby or not. And anyone who disagrees with that is still stuck in the 18th century. Contraception is going to have to become a much more global. There's going to need to be global contraception programs, and global awareness is going to have to be raised regardless of what the churches say. People are not going to be going back to churches. Nowhere near as much. Now that all the services are streaming online, we are now seeing the end of mass congregations in churches. Fourth house, residence, home, location, domestic situations. I've mentioned in relationships about how there's a degree of domestic, both growth and domestic violence at various different levels. But one thing's become really clear, and that is that the way we treat and mistreat our elders. The number of people, more than 50% of people in Britain anyway, who are dying of COVID-related illnesses are over 75. And once someone in a care home gets it, everyone gets it, and then a lot die. And we're not managing that. And this is being replicated all over the world. So the way we treat our elders, I'd love to say it's got to change because we have a social responsibility. In the real world, will that change? Will that be seen as affordable? No, in the first few months it won't. And there will be sacrifices made. And people will wring their hands and moan, but then they'll carry on drinking their expensive wine and doing things to try and avoid funding social care programs. In months and years to come, this will have to change, and we'll have to. Just because people age doesn't mean they're useless to society. As long as they're still functional and still able to contribute to society, they have a right to every type of life as much as anyone else does. And I think the way we treat our elder people is going to have to evolve and grow. The third house, related to Gemini, movement, travel, networking. The whole notion of travel is going to have to change. I find it interesting that in places like New York, where it's really tightly compressed in population, there's massive coronavirus illness. In places like California, where everyone drives cars, where only 3% of people regularly use public transport, and where everyone's more spread out, there's far fewer coronavirus cases. I can't see us going back to the massive car usage that we did have. But cars will be obviously, and personal transport systems will obviously be used a lot more in the coming months as we go back to what appears to be normal. But the days of the electric car are rapidly approaching, and one of the things that does seem clear is that so many people are commenting on the wildlife, the flowers, the birds, the bees, the clean air, and we're not going to want to go back to the pollution of cars, lorries, planes. So new systems of transport, which are far less polluting, will have to be the norm. The second house, relating to Taurus, money, increasingly, the cult of celebrity, the way we amass money and the resentment that it engenders is going to become more and more of an issue. For every person who's going, I want to make money, I've got to make money, all my life is about money. I look at people like Jack Dorsey, who's the owner of Twitter, the guy who founded Twitter. He's just giving away a quarter of his fortune to COVID-related establishments to try and help it. Bill Gates, now that Donald Trump has just pulled America out of the World Health Organization, nice one, Donald. Bill Gates has stepped in and said he will create a massive new fund. He will fund it. Now, there's agendas with Bill Gates, I know, and I will do a video on him in times to come. But at the moment, I'm looking at his philanthropy. We need people, the wealthy people such as Bill Gates and Jack Dorsey, who are prepared to put money in as opposed to just being greedy. And then there's the first house, the self. So many people now are in a situation where they've been forced to look at themselves, to look at their conscience in ways that when they're going around people, are they infecting people? Are they being infected by people? Are they obeying social distance rules? Or are they just carrying on regardless? There is going to be a noticeable markup in terms of conscience and hopefully integrity as well, which should lead to a better dignity for all of us. And I do think that the vast majority of people are going to come out of this COVID experience with a much better sense of self. However, at the end of the day, viruses generally stick around. So the better the relationship you have with yourself, the better the relationship you have with the world around you, and the key to a good relationship with himself, especially related to COVID, in my opinion, is good nutrition, lots of ginger, and a positive mental attitude, lots of humour. On that note, here's a couple of quick one-liners for you, just to completely change the tone of the broadcast. A guy's driving down the motorway, and in the back of his open back truck there's about 20 penguins. And a police officer pulls him over and says, "What are you doing with those penguins?" And the guy says, "They're mine." And the police officer says, "You should take them to the zoo." And he gives him a ticket, and off the guy drives. So the next day on the same motorway, police officer sees the same lorry coming down, the same open back lorry coming down the road with the same penguins in the back, but this time they're all wearing dark sunglasses. And the police officer pulls him over and says, "I thought I told you to take these penguins to the zoo." And the guy said, "I did, and today I'm taking them to the beach." Think about it. And here's a quick one-liner. Don't open an email with the heading "knock knock." Why? Because it's the Jehovah's. They're on lockdown, so they're working from home. Right, later today I am going to be doing a broadcast in about 5 hours' time on the YouTube channel Bridging the Realm, REALM. I'm going to be working with a colleague of mine, Desi, and we're going to be talking live streaming on the age of Aquarius. This is going to kick off in about just over 5 hours from now. And we will be able to take text questions. I don't quite know how it's going to work. I'm not the techie, I'm just the astrologer. Catch you later, I hope. Cheers, world. Bye.